Hi, I'm Teresa Tisha, and joining me today is Jim Fair. Today's date is Thursday, October 1st, 2009, and we want to say thank you very much, Jim, for being here today with us and sharing your memories. I'm going to start out just by saying, what part of Carroll County were you raised in?
Taneytown.
Taneytown.
Born in Taneytown, a line of a number of generations here.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So can you share something that you remember that's been passed down from your family, that a memory or a memento or a keepsake or?
Well, my great-grandfather built a number of the buildings in town and did the renovation and the building of the bell tower at the Lutheran Church.
Oh my goodness.
In 1897, 94 to 97. And in fact, my grandfather was a hod carrier for his father on that project when he was maybe 19.
And what is
so
that?
he carried the bricks and mortar up ramps to build that bell tower.
Unbelievable, and it's beautiful.
And so at the end of that job, he said, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So he went down to the Carroll Record, the printing company, and asked his cousin, I think it was, for a job, and started working there as a typesetter. So he worked with lead all his life. You know how dangerous lead is, right? Mm-hmm. And he worked there 65 years. So.
And he was happy there.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
And that was your grandfather?
That was my grandfather.
Wow, that's interesting. Very interesting. So there was a it was at Carroll Record right here in town.
Yeah, newspaper and
yeah.
printing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a weekly newspaper for a number of years. $1 a year.
For a subscription?
For a subscription.
Goodness.
For a number of years. I mean, I think that went that price up into the 30s at least. Yeah.
Wow. Now, were you in town? Did you live in town, or did you have a farm? Okay. So your family weren't a family of farmers then?
My mother's family were farmers, and my dad's uncle had a farm right at the end of town, the Knolls.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you've heard of them.
Yes, absolutely.
That was an uncle. He used to work out there for them a good deal when he was young.
So do you have a special childhood memory, or like of a game that you used to play when you were little, that maybe your family would get together and your cousins or whatever would play together? Did you have something like that you?
I can't remember.
Can't remember
you know, hide and seek. Of
right.
course, we lived on East Baltimore Street.
Oh, okay. So you were in town.
In town, and the kids in the evenings, you know, all the neighbors, the kids would play hide and seek around the houses and so on. And I remember the telephone pole was safe. You know.
What did they call home base or it? Right?
Home base.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, home base.
Exactly.
Yeah. So born on George Street.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So never got very far away.
Not at all.
And we still live in the house that my parents built in the early 30s. Ed Stoller, my dad bought half a lot. The lots on East Baltimore Street are 80-foot front, and a fellow he knew built on half a lot, a 40-foot wide, and so he asked him about buying the other half of the lot and building a house on it. He went to Ed Stoller, Stoller Construction, still in business. Went to Ed Stoller and said, you know, draw me up some plans. And so he came back and had plans for call it a story and a half, with dormers, no attic, you know, and just 6-room house and a pantry on the back, and it was $3,400.
Oh my goodness.
And my dad said, oh, I can't afford that. You know, gonna have to make some changes. So he went back and took the pantry off and came back, $2,900, built the house. And we still live in that house, although it had an addition put on. But
right. Now, do you remember what year that was? About what time?
About 33, 34.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
It's really, it makes you realize just how long Taneytown's really been here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the bell tower in the 1890s, and then, you know, then the building still going on in the 30s.
That was considered East End,
Yeah,
right?
interesting, very interesting. And now, did your family of origin, you said you've several generations right here in Taneytown?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then, do your parents or your grandparents, have they passed down a story that they remember, like what they, because we've seen changes just in our lifetimes here in Tanyeytown, but did they share anything that stood out for you that they remember that was part of
I remember my grandfather saying that he went to court my grandmother on his bicycle out to Starner's Dam. She lived out at Starner's Dam, and she was a Hess, and the Hess family, which is around.
Right, Hess family's still around. Exactly.
And he would ride his bicycle, big high wheels, you know.
And go quarter.
Go quarter. Yeah.
That's fun. Now I'm thinking, where's Starner's Dam at? Where is that?
Toward Harney,
Oh,
out
That's a good
Baptist
ride.
Road.
Yeah.
Baptist Road. Mm-hmm.
that had to be, what, 8 miles easy?
No, maybe
No?
5,
5? Okay.
4 or 5 miles, I
That's
guess.
good. And John, do you have family reunions now, or is everybody pretty local still, or?
Well, the Hess and Bushies have a reunion, but we never go.
Oh,
We haven't gone
no.
for years.
Now, why don't
Yeah.
you go, Jim?
I don't know. There's always something else
Something
going
else to
on
do.
that Sunday, I
Okay.
guess. No, that's a poor excuse. We just have never.
Maybe this year you'll go. Do they have them every year?
Yes, they do. Mhm.
Maybe you say, you know what, I had that interview, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
I need to go
Yeah.
see some of these kind of
But
folks.
the fairs never did.
No?
Not that many of
Not-
them, really.
So it'd be more of your wife's family.
Well, my wife's family does have
Right,
reunions.
they're the ones.
Yeah, because she's from a larger family, and they
Okay.
have. Yeah.
Now, did you have siblings as well?
No, I'm an only child.
Only child.
Mhm.
And then that was your, okay. And then did you have children?
And my dad was
Only
an
child
only
as well?
son. He
Oh,
had
only
a
son.
sister who was what they called a blue baby,
Oh, yeah.
and they said that she wouldn't live beyond 5 years old, and she died at 32. She had good care. Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. And when I went to school, my grandparents lived at the top of George Street. The school was on George Street, so I would go to my grandmother's for lunch every day, and she'd have, you know, if it was a cold, rainy day, you could know you were going to have potato soup.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's terrific. There's nothing
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to go to my grandmother's for lunch.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Now, was the school that's out there now on Roberts Mill, and
No, this
No.
was on George Street, where what do they call that now? THS Park
oh,
is. That's
so
where
they
the
tore
high
it
school.
down.
Well,
What grades was that school? Do you remember?
1 through 11.
1 through, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Wow.
So I started there in the first grade.
Okay. And then you graduated
From there.
okay, all right.
Yep.
So then that was only
Then it went-
11 years of school, right?
And then it went to 12 years.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
At that same school then?
Yes.
Okay, but that was after you were done?
Mhm.
Or was it still 12 when,
We graduated in 11.
11, right?
Mhm.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But then our children went to the same school.
The same school that you went to?
Went to that high school
Okay.
and graduated from that high school.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to think of that park. Didn't they make that like is it a skate park or
Mhm.
something? Okay, I
Skate
know
park
exactly.
on the
I
school
think
ground.
someone told me a long
Yeah.
time ago there was a school
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. And that's really close to the other school.
No.
No, how far?
See, that's on off of
Roberts,
George Street and
right.
Roberts Mill Road.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then that one that you're telling me about is off of,
George Street
George
and,
Street.
and Roberts Mill.
what about the
Yeah.
old middle school? I noticed the old middle school that was over on, because I went to middle school there, back there. Maybe, they didn't tear down that school, did they?
I don't know where.
Roberts, I thought it was Roberts Mill and
And
George
Street?
Or
Yeah,
Middle Street,
well,
somewhere in there, yeah.
That was a middle school.
when I went to school, it was a middle school.
And they had gone to Key then? High school
Then
had
I
gone
went
to
to Key.
Key? Okay, I really had forgotten
I'm
that.
just curious now, because I haven't been back there to know if the school's been torn down, but I know there's a skate park
Oh,
back
you're
there.
kidding.
But I'm wondering if
You're
it's,
kidding. Oh.
that's something, I didn't realize it was that school.
No, see, they abandoned that school, and the town was considering using it. The people of the town voted down
Which is
to,
a shame.
to take it over, but they were going to use the auditorium part. We're going to tear down the front part, which was the oldest part, built in '29, I think.
Yeah, which is not old.
And so the firemen, maybe this isn't proper to talk about
no,
this,
it's fine.
but the firemen decided one Sunday that they would have exercises in there to set a fire, put it out, set a fire, put it out before they
Actually
they
went.
tore it down. And I know we were in church, came out of early church, I guess it would have been, and here was this big plume of smoke. What happened, they took all the firemen down to the activities building and given them instructions and so on, but one fire company decided they didn't need that. They got up there and started doing this themselves. The fire got away, got between the ceiling and the roof, and it ended up with all those fire companies in Taneytown, and it destroyed the whole thing.
That makes me so sad.
Yeah, so they had to just,
And like
Yeah.
seeing forward, they could have used
Yeah.
that school.
even had to, they called in the Gettysburg, I think it was,
Fire department.
fire, they had a tower that would put water down on top of it, you know, and didn't save it.
What was the name of the school when you went there?
Taneytown High School.
Taneytown
Or
High
Well,
School.
it was Taneytown School.
It has
you
to
know,
be.
yeah.
I remember it like the red brick with the white,
Mhm.
like cream-colored cornerstones or something, like kind of
No, it
deco. It was very deco looking.
No, it was two front doors.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
I'll
You'll
have to drive
go
back
up,
there.
You'll have to
'cause
go up
when
to
I
the
went-
museum. Well, there's a
It's Tanyeytown
monument
Middle.
there too with
Oh,
a
is there?
picture of it.
Okay, so the firemen actually burned it down. And then it was a good way for the county,
Well,
or the
they
city,
had to
town to
just
get rid of it anyways.
bulldoze it down.
I did not, so I'm thinking it's in the same neighborhood, and actually that skate park's probably right on the property.
It's on what was the school ground
I'll have
where we
to,
used to play ball.
yeah, because I remember the track and field was in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go back.
Mhm.
I'll have to go back.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a good story. I never knew. So do you know what year that was when it was destroyed?
Should.
Around, like what decade even?
Should.
I know, it all starts
Um,
blending, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just can't peg it now. Isn't
That's
that
all right.
awful?
And I can look it up. And, because I'm just curious, you know? Do you have special memories about neighbors growing up that you had? I know that you were fortunate you could go to your grandmother's for lunch at school, but
Mhm.
did you have special?
Well, everybody took care of everybody. You know, back then, you know, a neighbor on one side of me, of us, had grocery store, Doherty's. Doherty's Snowball Shack out
Yeah.
here, ice cream shack. His father had the store up right near the square.
Now, was it an Acme?
Doherty's Grocery.
Doherty's Grocery.
Mhm.
I'll be darned.
And so, you know, my dad had retail bread route.
Huh.
Drove for Smith's Model Steam Bakery. There were two bakeries in town, Bumgardner's and Model Steam. And he bought bread from the Smith's Model Steam Bakery. And so I grew up on the bread truck. He had 3 different routes, go twice a week to each route, retail, most retail, a few stores. And so my first multiplication table that I learned was my 9 table. I mean, 3 loaves was 27 cents, you know. 4 loaves was 30 cents. Because we sold the most of what they called a lily white loaf, of bread, which sold for 9 cents a loaf.
Unbelievable. And now we're at $3 easy. Unbelievable. So you did your 9 tables because everything was by multiples of 9.
So that's what,
That's
you
interesting.
learned. And then after he quit, work came along, hard to get tires and gas, and he quit and went to a neighbor and got a job at the Taneytown Grain and Supply Company, okay?
Which was
Down along the railroad track.
on the
building.
railroad track. Oh, yes, 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 yes.
The building is still there.
Yes.
with The,
Behind the rescue
mill,
mission, right? Is
on
that-
Mill Avenue,
Huh.
just beside the railroad track. And so then I went, buddy in high school was going along on the red route for another guy, and he put in a word for me, so I did that. And then this next door neighbor, the Doherty, I went over and asked him for a job. I think I was 15. It may have been 14 or 15. During the war, he couldn't get help, and I put in, and at that age, you were only allowed to work, I think it was 20 hours a week, and I put in many a week with 80 hours, 70 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
While going to
Because
school
he never
or just something?
closed. You know,
Okay,
you
he was
opened
always-
at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you closed when the people quit coming in. But that was nice. Another neighbor, remember when I like to tell the story that when I wanted to buy a car, it was Merle Oler's Garage, which now is Wentz Chevrolet. Had a garage right down the street. And I went to him, I said, Merle, I need a car. Beginning insurance business, and I need a car. Up till then, we had walked or used my parents' car. And he said, you don't need a car, you can use your dad's car. I said, no, I really do need a car, but I don't have much money. Well, I'll sell you a car, and you pay me 0.5% per month interest on the loan that I'll give you, and pay on the principal whenever you can. And I'm not the only one he did that for.
What
He
a
did that
good
for a lot of
neighbor.
people.
And what an,
He did that for a lot of people.
that's
Really did.
totally an asset for the community.
0.5% per month on the declining balance, and just pay me on the principal whenever you can.
What an amazing man. Now, what was his last name?
Oler.
Merle Oler.
Oler.
Now, I remember there was wasn't Wentz out on the other end of town?
Yeah.
Okay, was that where his shop was?
No,
or
his
not that
shop.
far
His
out?
shop was where the potential office is, across from the bank. Sort
Oh,
of down
yes.
there. That was
Oh, right in
that
there,
was the
like the
garage.
kind of the
That
center
was
of
the
town.
garage. Mhm.
Like at the Fork, at Geranian, like that area?
On this side.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll be
Just down the
darned.
street from us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And he was quite a fireman. The first fire truck that Tanytown had, I think, was a Chevrolet, which was a special truck, and they outfitted it then for fires. But when the fire siren would go off at night, you knew that within about a minute or two, you would hear his car backing out the driveway and uptown because he drove the fire truck.
A sense of safety in that, too, knowing that your neighbor
Yeah,
is a fire person.
I guess so.
Wow, that's a great story. Thank you. Just telling me about these things, does that make you think of other things that you remember? Something special about your grandmother that she did? I know that you knew on rainy days potato soup. Was there something else that, stood out
No.
that you remember that was special about her or your grandfather?
Well, I know my mother's family, of course, lived out on the farm, and my mother was always kind of cold, and whenever we went there, the stove, the wood burning
like a cook stove.
the cook stove, the oven door laid down, and it was very sturdy, and she would love to sit on that oven door. As soon as we would go in, she'd sit on the oven door. We used to kid her about it. But,
It's funny how
that
some
was
people
her
run to being
favorite
cold.
spot.
That's a hot spot.
And that grandmother always had ginger cookies back in the summer kitchen. And when we came, it was always get some of those soft ginger cookies out.
That sounds yummy. That's a good memory.
Yeah.
That's very good. And that was a farm then outside of town. Wow.
Yeah. Used to go with my uncles down to swim in the creek, Piney Creek.
Piney Creek? And that can get pretty full.
Well, it was summertime, and it would be just a couple of holes that were enough to do some swimming.
There's nothing like that, is there?
Of course, the cows from Teeters was right up the creek, so, you know, you want to be careful when you swallow the gulp of water.
We didn't think about stuff like that when we were kids, though.
Yeah. In fact, my mother was afraid of the water, and I loved the water, and would hide my swimming trunks when spring would come, you know, before school was out, hide my swimming trunks under my bicycle seat. As soon as school was out, some of us would go down to the pump house down on Piney Creek and swim, because she worked in the sewing factory and didn't get home till 4:30.
Right, the sewing factory was on the other end of town, too.
Well, the sewing factory was up the street from us. She would walk.
It
up
was?
there, yeah.
It wasn't past Memorial Park where I remember it being. Wasn't it the sewing factory?
Don't believe, not there.
Okay,
Sewing factory was up Broad Street, close to the Legion, where the
Okay.
American Legion is.
Oh, I'll be darned.
That building there on
All
your
right.
left as you go up.
And that building's still there. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that. I was thinking there was one, there was another,
Now, part of that building was torn down, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Okay.
That,
I think it was Worthington Pump moved in, and I thought the sewing, but that was maybe
oh,
the 70s.
that was, yeah, that
later,
was,
right?
they made emblems.
Oh,
right.
that was
Yes.
different. That was different than the sewing factory in
Yeah,
town.
this sewing factory made men's suits.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness, I
Men's
didn't know
suits.
that. Oh,
Yeah, my mother
goodness.
worked there for
And
a
that's-
number of years.
So then it was right within walking distance from your home.
Right.
Right. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that there was another one. Now, I remember the rubber factory. Was it called the rubber factory?
Yes.
Okay. And how,
Yeah, Cambridge Rubber.
that was it, Cambridge Rubber. And that was there for a long time. Do you remember when that came to town?
Remember when it burned down?
You do?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
When was that? I
Yeah.
don't remember. I don't know that.
All of that information is up at the museum.
It is?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Right, because so they were really like, most people kind of were local working there, weren't they? I mean, did it pull in people from outside?
Well, you know, people from Thurmont and Littlestown and, yeah.
Because for as
They-
small as
they-
Tanyeytown is, I mean, it was pretty thriving.
Yeah, they employed a lot of people there.
Yeah.
There's some pictures up there where they have all of the employees
Oh, they
outside the building. And,
Huh.
quite a few.
That's good. I'll have to,
Both factories, the sewing factory too.
and that's in the Tanyeytown Museum? Is
And
that,
of course, talking about a sewing factory, George Schreiner had a sewing factory on the square where the Asian
oh, yeah,
restaurant is
Yeah.
now.
right on
That
the
was a
corner.
movie theater on the first floor, and the second floor was I think they made pajamas.
Huh.
I'm not sure. But my dad also worked for him, helped with on the sewing machines, you know, and he was a projectionist for the movie
Oh, my,
in his younger days.
that would be
And
with the big reels.
I guess. And so he went out with a little bus, like, and picked up women to bring into that factory. And so he went out toward Harney, picking up women, and here this girl gets on the bus to work at the factory, and that was my mother. That's where he met her.
Oh, my,
Yeah.
that's
She worked there in the Pajama, I think it was. It was a clothing factory on the square in Taneytown.
Huh. There's been a lot of changes in town, a lot. Do you remember when the library was downtown?
Yes.
Before we moved?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it was small.
And you mentioned the Acme store. The Acme store was there before that.
I did not know that until I had an interview and someone told me that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So then Doherty's then had a store that was a little bit bigger then, more.
It would have been about the same size, I
Would
guess.
it have been the same time, Jim?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So they were kind of a
There was an
competition.
A&P
Oh, no.
before that was across the street from Doherty's. I'm trying to think the print shop up there. Gosh, I was up there this morning. Isn't that awful?
Oh, there's a print shop there now?
Yes.
Huh. I don't know.
Now I'm not going to tell
You're
you
not
the
gonna
name.
blank?
Isn't that terrible?
No,
The
it happens to all of
that
us.
name. But the A&P store was there
Huh.
for a time.
Did not know that. I remember we moved up here in the 70s, I think, and it might have been late 60s. And I remember that there was a bakery in Tanyeytown. When you go towards the square on the left-hand side, up from where the library.
That would have been Baumgartner's
That was
Bakery.
Baumgartner's, and that was there for a long time. They
Yeah.
were very thriving.
Oh, yeah.
But now there isn't a bakery in town.
Oh, no. Small bakeries have gone out of business.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember we used to get bread. I mean, we used to get a lot of stuff
Sure.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, knew the cake baker there. Very good. In fact, my dad bought bread from Smith's, but he
Right, 'cause
bought
he-
the cakes and cookies and stuff from down at Baumgartner's.
Right, because your father had
hauled
that
them
route
around.
on the truck, and then there's that, right, 9 cents a day. You knew the bread, too. So, you've explained about what it was like for you visiting your dad on his job, really, because you were working there, too, right, when you would do the run. Is there things that stand out about that for you, other than learning your multiplication tables really early? You were little then. You were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that stood out?
Well, I know in summertime, I would go along, of course, as I was in school. But you helped to load the truck, one afternoon, and then you would go out early the next morning. And I remember one time, Dad had just bought a new truck, brand new truck. They would outfit it with wooden shelves inside that would slide. When we'd load the truck, you'd put the loaves of bread on a shelf, and then you'd push it forward and put the next shelf in and load that and push it forward. And as you took out from the front then. And but he had just gotten this new truck. I think it was the first day. It was a Saturday. And we were coming below Mayberry, coming into Mayberry. And, of course, dirt roads, all
Right.
dirt roads then. And they used to, in the summertime, the county would come along with a big plow and plow out the ditches so the water could drain, and plow that up into the middle of the road so it would round it up. Had a thunderstorm, and he came through the woods down there below Mayberry, and it got muddy, a little greasy, slid over in the ditch and damaged the side of this new truck.
Oh.
That was a little upsetting for
I
him.
bet it was. And an adventure, because everything's timing and conditions were just right.
But people remember how they used to do that with the roads,
And I never heard
Yeah.
that story before. I never heard
Yeah.
about them digging,
Yeah.
along the ditches.
And
like that.
in the wintertime, when it would thaw toward spring, some of his route, he would get a farmer, borrow his wagon and a horse or horses, and deliver some of the bread out to the farmers that way, to get to them.
To get to them?
Yeah, that's the way you serviced your people, didn't you?
That's
Yeah.
real customer service.
That's right, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and he even walked and carried the bag on his back to some customers right out of town. I remember when it would get real muddy, and just couldn't get through with the truck.
And that's part of the commitment, the part of that
Mhm.
service to say, well, you know, they
Mhm.
have a need, and I'm going to make sure they get it. That's part of my job, which there's not a lot of that today. I mean,
No,
it's usually
can't
stops
imagine anybody doing anything
nothing.
like
And
that
if they
today.
did, you'd be so surprised, like, oh my goodness, what do I owe
Yeah.
you? What do you want? You know, the
Yeah.
hook. If you were to say to someone that has never been to Carroll County, what would you say to them? How would you describe it? Do you have like a feeling about Carroll County, or the way it looks, or how it's different from other places, or,
I've never lived anywhere else,
you haven't?
so I
So you
can't.
can't really say,
I
huh?
can't really relate it to anywhere
something
else,
about
but I
that,
think
isn't there?
there's a feeling of community, I think, that we have, and I think that still exists.
I think it's even in this library. Don't you feel that when you come
Mhm.
into the library,
Mhm.
people know everybody?
I believe.
I think so too.
I mean, I remember when you did know everyone in Tanytown. Of course, working in the store, delivering, and I helped take the census in '50 and in '60.
Oh, wow.
And you ought to look this up, but it just runs in my mind that in 1950 the population was 1,614. 1950. And in 1960 it was like 3 more people. It was like
That's
still
small.
1,617
Right, it wasn't growing
or
a
something.
lot.
It wasn't much there. I think they're approximate numbers.
Wow.
But that was inside the city limits. Now it was starting to build up outside the city limits, which had not been changed in that time. But it's been quite a change since then. So you don't know your neighbor anymore.
And I'm always surprised when people say, oh yeah, well, I'm from Baltimore, I came from here, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, and you ended up in Carroll County, and you ended up in Taneytown, this small, what I think of as a small knit community,
Yeah.
but it's really changed a lot. And now they're here, and their families are here, and they're starting that, I guess, what I want to say, that continuity of living right here in Carroll County as well, and liking it enough to stay and making it their home as well.
I would say.
I think it's a lot of that. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and I'm going to, before I say thank you and a big wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with us today that you'd like to just...
Gosh, I don't know. I've rambled on pretty much.
No,
about
you've
that.
done a wonderful job. We
Yeah.
appreciate that. But sometimes when you mention something that made you think of something else that maybe I didn't ask you that you thought you'd like to share with us, or...
Something interesting, we were talking about the school. During the war, and I don't think this maybe ever happened anywhere else, but there was a portable that had 2 classrooms in it. I think I was in it in 3rd and 4th grade because the school was too small for the school population, so they had a wooden portable in the back for 2 grades. Then they put the addition on the school, so the portable sat vacant. I think you used it for storage maybe. But during the war, our junior class, I think we were juniors, we raised chickens in there. And, some of us around town tended the peepees, raised them to pullet size or whatever, and made money for the junior-senior banquet.
That's awesome.
That was before we had a prom. It was a banquet then. And
then you have the support of the school, and then the...
Yeah.
Oh, that is so great. And your neighbors?
And the principal and the shop teacher set up rigs in the shop, which was in the basement of the school, and made ammunition cases, wooden ammunition cases. You sawed these pieces out, and so I don't remember. I remember working there, overtime, evenings or weekends or whatever, and I guess we were paid a little. I don't know.
I know, it's funny.
But that's what we did for the war effort.
Wow.
We raised food, and we
Made
made ammunition cases for the Army.
Unbelievable. That's a great story. That's a great story. Wow.
Yeah. wouldn't be allowed to do that, anything like that today.
No way.
Too much liability.
Can you
right?
imagine just bringing chickens on a school property or any of that?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, funny.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really
Yeah.
appreciate this, and we really appreciate you sharing your memories with us today.
Well, maybe to bring back some memories to somebody.
I think it will. It helped me.
Maybe.
You sparked some things. There's some things I need to go check. I
Right,
need to see
you
that
need
school.
to do that. You need to do